I don't know about you, but sometimes I get those moments when I want to watch a nicer movie, I want to listen to a nice album, or maybe I'm on YouTube and the YouTube algorithm is not recommending me anything really interesting for me at the moment, and I would like something more engaging. So this video is for all my subscribers. I wanted to use this video as kind of a reference point for when you have one of those moments. You can come back to this video and see what I recommended. This is the index for today. I have 3 YouTube videos to recommend you, 1 YouTube channel, 1 movie, 3 songs, 2 albums, 1 classical music piece, and 1 book. Let's get into it. The first YouTube recommendation I have, it's the most important piece of advice of this entire video. A 50 minutes documentary titled Regreening the Desert with John D. Liu. It's the documentation of the work of this doctor, expert in ecosystems. He goes around the world in specific locations where he's needed for rehabilitate large-scale ecosystems that are disrupted. We are talking about, for example, lands that got desertified in the last few decades because of an improper agricultural system or an improper farming system. And the reason why I'm so enthusiastic about this documentary is because this gives you exactly the solution to climate change. I'm not talking about using a bamboo toothbrush or paper straws or recycling. I'm talking about what is at the very, very base of the action against climate change. Because the problem of climate change is very complex and it's almost overwhelming for how complex it is. Let me put this on. So the climate change problem is generated by the fact, very simply, that we are creating too much pollution, right? This carbon from underneath the soil that has been stored there for thousands of years, we're taking it out and releasing it into the atmosphere. And the Earth has systems to reabsorb this CO2 and retransform it into oxygen, the oceans, the seas, and the forests. But this huge problem comes from 2 sides. One side is we are creating too much pollution, but there is another side. The other side is that at the same time we are disrupting those ecosystems, which are the only resource that this planet has, to solve the problem that we are creating with the emissions. And what this documentary lets you understand is that the problem is not as much that it is difficult to apply the solution. The problem is mainly the fact that there is still a lot of ignorance about these problems. So please, 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 if you only want to watch one of these suggestions, let it be this one. You don't need to be passionate about climate change to watch this documentary. This is not only about climate change. This is about a way more specific topic that also talks about local economies, for example, and social justice. The next video I recommend is the interview to a former maid of Adolf Hitler. First reason why I chose this video is simply because a few days ago it was the Giorno della Memoria in Italian, and because the Holocaust denial numbers keep growing, which is simply not explainable to me. I really don't understand how this is possible. It is certainly important to keep remembering. There's also a second reason, which for me is very important, why I chose this video in particular, and it's because it shows that there is never only one perspective on things, on the events that happen in the world. This nowadays old lady who used to be one of the maids at the summer residence of Adolf Hitler shows exactly how it was possible for an entire nation to be fascinated by this personality and believe in what he was saying. Let's just remember that all those people who were supporting the Nazi party were not completely out of their mind. And I want to send this message especially to Americans, because sometimes I feel judged for being Europeans by Americans, because they just don't understand how it was possible for entire populations to accept certain dictatorships. And I can, I guess, understand why you don't understand, because you weren't there. You just learned what happened from the history books. When Nazism started to happen in Germany, German people surely didn't know what would have happened next. And even during Nazism, as this lady in this interview clearly tells us, people didn't know a certain aspect of what was happening. And I want to invite every one of us nowadays to be aware of this, because even nowadays in our countries, something similar could always happen. And my last YouTube video recommendation, then we'll go to the YouTube channel recommendation, is titled "I Married a Maasai and Moved to His Boma." And there is the picture of a white woman in the thumbnail of the video. It's not clickbait. I watched the entire thing. It's 30 minutes video. Totally worth it. It's about this German woman who happened to kind of fall in love with a Maasai man, and she married him. And now she's been living in the tribe of the Maasais in Tanzania, I think, for 9 years. I think it's extremely open-minded. The Maasai, I don't know if anyone doesn't know who the Maasai are. They are an indigenous tribal population who live between Kenya and Tanzania, I believe. And you know how German women are very independent, feminism in Germany is a pretty big deal. And the Maasai culture is a very, very patriarchal one. Women do not have independence at all. They usually move from their father's house directly to their husband's house, and they really cannot speak up about many different things. I'm pretty sure that this woman had to face criticism from her old family in Germany and probably from all her feminist friends. And for sure she had to face also integration struggles as a white Western woman entering into a Maasai tribe. And that's why I think she is such an amazing example for our society nowadays. And I'm not talking about our society in our culture, but I mean all over the world, because we are going towards a more and more globalized place where cultures will keep clashing and fighting with each other and having to live together, and therefore we need to push our limits of tolerance towards other cultures and other perspectives on the world more and more. And who has been following me for at least a few months knows exactly in which situation I am right now. A girl from the beautiful Italian countryside who grew up right next to the Alps is now stuck in the middle of New York City, exactly in Manhattan, one of the places of the world with the highest density of people. And you know what? This video is gonna be published on the 7th of February, which is gonna be the 365th day that I've been living here in Manhattan. So it's been one freaking entire year now, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling so much. I've been struggling since the summer, which is a moment where you usually spend your time outside, going hiking, going on adventures and stuff. And one of the things that kept me mentally sane since last summer has been this channel. It's an Italian channel by a guy from Padova, which is also a city where I've lived for several years, who is called Omar Martinelli. His YouTube channel is called OMERO. He speaks Italian in his videos, so unfortunately, if you don't understand Italian, you're not going to understand what he says, but most of the times in his videos, there is no need to understand what he's talks about. The images speak by themselves in this case. My favorite videos are certainly his hikes on the Alps. Especially, I recommend you to start with not the last video he published this week, but the video, like the previous one, which is this one. I'm gonna put it somewhere, because it's a hike with stunning landscapes, stunning views, and there's not much words in it. It's mostly images. He also does walking travels, so he's done the Cammino di Santiago, he's done il Cammino degli Dei twice. This summer he has done the Italy coast to coast walk, and he does, guess what, biking trips, which, you know, I'm a huge fan of cycling. I really want to thank him for all he's been doing, because This channel has been really one of the things that saved me from going completely insane this summer, because I was missing Italy so much. I was missing my Alps, I was missing going hiking, I was missing being in the fresh air and being able to breathe in the middle of the trees and stuff like that. So, grazie Omar. Look, I chose only one movie suggestion for this video because I think this movie is just perfect in so many regards. It's perfect for when you're super tired, you don't want to watch anything, you know, too engaging or too difficult to understand. It's basically a comedy. But at the same time, it's not a stupid movie. It is inspirational. You know those movies that, you know, make you think, oh, more people should do the same, or I should think about doing something similar and stuff like that. This is one of those movies, and it is entertaining, it is hopeful, it is funny, especially it has a very good sense of humor. I was laughing pretty hard in several moments of the movie. Plus, it is not a Hollywood movie for once. It is not American as well. On the contrary, it is... Guess what? It's Italian! I couldn't believe it was an Italian production. I don't have a big opinion of the Italian cinema in the last few years, so I couldn't believe my eyes to see that it was a completely Italian production. So happy about it. The actors, I must say, they are not the best. The direction is not the best as well, but there are pretty spectacular images of the Italian region of Emilia-Romagna, especially on the seaside, which, I mean, it's always nice to see some drone images of the sea, of the beach and stuff like that. The movie is called L'isola delle Rose, which in English translates with Rose Island, and you can find it on Netflix. Not supporting Netflix, I don't like Netflix, but that's where you can find it. And actually, I haven't said the best thing of all, which is, it's a true story. It's a freaking true story that I had no idea it happened back in the days in Italy. Watch this movie. Now we enter the entire section dedicated to music, but I have to put a little disclaimer. I don't pay attention to lyrics. I know it's weird, but to me, music is about sound and rhythm. It's not about words. That's poetry, you know? And to me, music is already too much. I don't want to mix it with poetry. So, just a little disclaimer. Let's start with the most frivolous section. I picked 3 songs. Let's start from the older one of the 3. They're all very recent. 1998. I was 8 years old. I don't know about you, but I was 8 years old, and I remember clearly this Placebo song, Pure Morning. Friend in need is a friend indeed, a friend that bleeds is better. And then this guitar starts in the central part of the song. Oh, that sound of electric guitar is so 90s. It was probably 3 weeks ago when I suddenly remember about this song, and so I re-listened to Pure Morning after probably 15 years at least, and I actually found it a very good song, so I decided to insert it into this list of suggestions. Fast forward 5 years now, it's 2003, another British band, The Blur. Oh my god, Damon Albarn. Oh my god. Their most successful albums are the first ones in the 90s, but there is this album called Think Tank, which has this song, which is the single of the album, and it's so beautiful. It's called Out of Time. Open up your mind and watch the world spinning gently out of time. I think it's so sweet, soothing. Damon Albarn's voice is, oh my god, it's just perfect in this music with this minimalistic kind of instrumental part. I really, really like it. And with the third song, we finally get out of the British musical context. We stay in Europe, we go to Berlin, 2012. And this track, to be honest, I feel a bit emotional sharing it because I've been listening to it since 2012. I was in Berlin in 2013, going to all the possible techno concerts that I could go to. Then in 2018, my very first trip as digital nomad, I came to New York City, and in the very first days I had a hostel right close to Central Park. And I remember the first walk I took in Central Park, I was by myself with my headphones, and I played this song, and I thought it was just perfect. It was the perfect representation of walking in Central Park. And I thought, oh my God, when I'm gonna have a little bit more audience in my YouTube channel that I'm just starting right now, those were the times, I'm gonna put this as a suggestion somehow. So to my older self, this is dedicated to you. All the efforts you made that March to open this YouTube channel. Nowadays, I finally have an audience big enough that is gonna listen to my suggestions. And Phone O is a German producer. He is produced by the label 50 Weapons. That's why I know him. It's the whole circle of Mode Selector. He was supporting Apparat last summer or the summer before, pre-quarantine. This entire album, The Black Boulder, is very good. I suggest you to check it out if you're interested into the genre. But this track in particular, 12 is called, is just, every time I listen to it, I get 6 minutes of goosebumps. No jokes, 6 minutes of goosebumps. It's just, there is this big climax during the whole song that just, my sensation during this song is that I start on the earth and I start lifting myself from the ground, and at a certain point I'm just flying, you know? This is how this song makes me feel. Also, for all you big critics of techno music, this is techno. It's gorgeous and I love it. You see all these records? All these records, there are as many here on this wall that you cannot see right now in the camera. This is my husband's collection of records, they are not mine. Of all these records, there is one that is my favorite. Now things get tricky for me as a YouTuber because I don't know much about copyright stuff, and I think if I keep talking on top of the music, I'm not gonna get into a copyright strike. Let's see, this is gonna be a nice surprise. Anyway, this record is this one, which is a pretty precious record. It's quite expensive on the market at the moment. It's this artist called Francis Bebey, and he was originally from Cameroon. He died in Paris a few years ago, and this is the instrument that is called Sanza. I don't know, if you Google Sanza, you're not gonna find much, honestly. This instrument is called with other names, but whatever. This record is apparently all about this instrument. There are other instruments, as you can hear probably behind my voice, like flutes and stuff, and it's Sanza flutes, percussions, voice. And guys, I'm telling you, this is just an amazing record. It makes me feel so peaceful inside every time my husband plays it, you know, sometimes as a background for dinner, sometimes just, you know, on our day off in the afternoon while reading a book. Oh my God, this record is just, it puts me in peace and harmony with the world. In the second half of the 80s, there was this band. I mean, there's still the band, I guess, but that was their golden moment. This band called the Pogues. It was an Irish-English band that was doing Irish folk music in a modern rock way, with loads of punk inside as well. Many fellow Europeans watching this know the Pogues for sure. It's been one of the bands of my childhood, despite, I think, their lyrics. This is for me the wintertime band par excellence. And the album that I want to mention today is Peace and Love, which is probably not their best album, but it's the album that I keep more dear to my heart because my older brother used to have a cassette of that album, you know, a homemade cassette, obviously, and he used to play it all the time. He also had a couple of more albums, but for some reason, Peace and Love always stayed very dear in my heart. Especially I like the variety of songs there are. I love the intro song, Gridlock. It's so energetic, powerful, but also kind of sophisticated. And I love the fact that it's the intro to a folk, punk, rock album. I forgot about this band for many years, literally for my whole 20s. I haven't listened to this band anymore. But a few weeks ago, I was driving back to the city in the evening with my husband sleeping at my side, and I got to decide what music to put on, and I suddenly remember Peace and Love, this album, and so I put it on and I listened to it the entire trip from New Jersey to Manhattan, and I absolutely loved it all over again. There are happy songs, there are sad songs, there are angry songs, there are sweet songs, there is Lorelei, but there is the beautiful young lad of the hill, there is Cotton Fields. Oh my god, this album, I don't know, I don't think it's an amazing album, but it just reminds me of my childhood so much. I guess that's why it's in this list. Beethoven's 7th Symphony is a bit unusual in the sense that the movement that became more popular is the slow one, which is also the only one that was written in a minor key. And the movement that I'm talking about is the second one, Allegretto. I chose this particular piece of music for this video because I think it's just the perfect accompaniment for a winter sunset. One of those winter sunsets, you know, one of those. It has this very simple theme that is ba 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 ba. This is the theme. Ba 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 ba. Super simple and yet so powerful. It's repeated all the way through the movement, and I don't know, it just creates such a to be honest, I find this to be a very powerfully emotional piece of music. Often when I play and I'm very much focused on it, I just burst into tears. I literally start crying. That's Beethoven, obviously, but this particular movement is especially very melancholic and very emotionally powerful as well. I'll leave you in the description the link to the entire 7th Symphony in the version that is the most usual for me to listen to, which is with the Berliner Philharmoniker, directed by Herbert von Karajan. I suggest a good pair of headphones if you're listening to it from home, or better, if you are driving around and there is suddenly this winter sunset, you know, one of those winter sunsets, put this piece of music on, just turn the volume up, maximum level, and feel alive. While filming this video, I made a poll in my community page, and so many of you surprisingly voted for reading suggestions, so I added one book. I'm gonna suggest 2 books today. The first book I want to suggest to you is a novel that I read when I was 15 probably, and I don't have it here. It's Il nome della rosa by Umberto Eco. Umberto Eco has been one of the most important figures of the Italian university and intellectual panorama, let's say, okay? He's been a philosopher, a semiologist, a writer, a professor. He's done so many things. He died 5 years ago, and one of his most famous books probably is Il nome della rosa, which has been translated in English under the name of the Rose. It is a historical murder mystery novel located in the 14th century in a monastery in Italy. Look, I'm not that much into novels in general, but this particular one, it's such an incredible story, so engaging, so full of history and suspense. Oh my god, the book is super long, really. It's one of the longest books I've ever read, probably. But I remember that I read it within a few days, really. You don't have to be passionate about the Middle Ages to enjoy this book. I was not, I've never been. And yet, it is such an amazingly written adventure and mystery. Umberto Eco was a medievalist. He wrote this in a very historically accurate way, and it's really one of the best novels I can suggest to anyone. The author is French, is Edgar Morin. It's titled The 7 Knowledges Necessary for the Education of the Future. And a little bit like Umberto Eco, Edgar Morin is also an intellectual who has been dealing with so many different subjects. Education is only one of them, but I must say I own all the 3 books of his trilogy about education. Education is the most important thing that there is in the world, really, in our societies. In any society, in any country of the world, everything starts with education. This one is very short. I mean, look at this, 100 pages. It's very easy to read. I think Edgar Morin does an amazing job at outlining the future knowledges that should be taught in the schools, in the entire world. Maybe I can go through them very quickly so that you can get an idea of what we're talking about. Knowledge makes mistakes. Knowledge does not mean always truth. Promote a knowledge able to grasp the global problems so that we can insert into these global problems the local one, the specific ones, the partial ones. The human being is at the same time physical, biological, psychic, cultural, social, and historical. We need to teach this complex unity that is the human nature. From the 16th century, the history becomes planetary. We should teach the history of this global identity of the humankind. We should not only teach the sciences in terms of what we are certain about, but also what we are uncertain about. Being able to communicate properly and to avoid misunderstandings goes through comprehension, human comprehension. We should teach that to our kids. They should be able to understand why sometimes humans don't understand each other, why there is fear of another culture, fear of the stranger. Human is at the same time species, society, and individuum. This is what a human ethics should be based on. That's it. Read this. By the way, I just realized that this was published for the UNESCO. It's strange that I never realized about it. Usually I always go to look at these publishing notes. And voila! I really hope that in the next weeks or months you're gonna come back to this video for suggestions. And if you need more suggestions about YouTube channels specifically, I made a video about this top 6 YouTube channel to watch during the quarantine that is still valid nowadays. And that's all for today. I'll see you next Sunday.